Southwestern Family of Companies welcomes you to the Action Catalyst. Each week, our diversely and amazingly accomplished guests share their insights and inspirations to help us ignite our own. So let's invest attention together to breathe, to reflect and refocus, and decisively defeat that voice we call Mr. Mediocrity. Then let's enjoy moving forward to make a positive difference in our world. Privileged to be your host, this is Dan Moore.
Welcome to the Action Catalyst. This is Dustin Hillis, CEO of Southwestern Family of Companies. And today we are so excited to have a special guest. Mark Rau is the man at Southwestern Advantage. And he is a board of directors member at Southwestern Family of Companies. He's the director of U.S. sales, and he is a true blue, what we used to call bookman, and now we call them education men. And he leads the entire United States of America sales force at Southwestern Advantage. For those of you that don't know what Southwestern Advantage is, it's the oldest direct sales company in the United States of America. His division was founded in 1868. And since then, many, many people have come along and built Southwestern, and Mark is carrying the torch in the United States of America and leading the group. And so excited to talk with Mark about how he's gotten to where he is today and what's going on with Southwestern. Welcome to the Action Catalyst, Mark.
Hey, thanks, Dustin. It's great to be here.
Well, to start, I consider you a mentor of mine. And so it's so fun having you on. And I remember actually 18 years ago going into Southwestern as a door-to-door bookman is what we were called back then, which today, as I said, is the education man. And hearing from you some of your lessons on how to be successful and fast forward to today, now working together on the board of directors, and everything has been just such a fun journey, and are just becoming friends with you has been a joy. So
thank you. Yeah. 33 years. And, when I think of the fact that you started 18 years ago, it really makes me feel old.
Well, take us back through the journey. Let's just start with 33 years ago. Tell us what brought you to Southwestern and what the journey's been like from a high level over the last 33 years for you.
Okay, I'll do my best. This is this is kind of stuff that I always have a difficult time talking about myself. I'm more used to listening to other people talk. So I will do my best with this, but I guess if we start the journey with Southwestern, when I got out of high school, I was just in a situation when I was younger where my parents didn't have any money. They're divorced and didn't have any money really to help me out with college at all. So when I graduated high school, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, my high school sweetheart, she got a full scholarship to University of Florida. Very, very intelligent woman. I was more the social guy in high school. So there was no scholarships coming for me. I was lucky to get into UF, but I didn't have any money to pay for it. So I worked all summer as a lifeguard, taught little kids how to swim. And then in the fall, I actually worked for the post office about 50 hours a week, throwing priority mail, and I was able to save enough money to afford one semester of college. That's all I could afford. And so I went to University of Florida, and I got recruited. I asked one of my professors if he knew of a summer job where I could make a ton of money in a summer, because I didn't want to have to work during the school year. I wanted to be social and be in a fraternity and have fun and do sports and stuff like that. And one of my professors had heard about it, because back then UF was the #1 school at Southwestern 15 or 16 years in a row. And so a lot of professors knew about it. And he said, yeah, there's this Southeastern company or something. They usually pass out surveys and attack kids after the drop ad line, because back then you had to stand in this long line to drop and add classes. And he said, yeah, they're always there just forcing people to fill out surveys. And so I went down there and I filled out a survey, and Brian Friedman called me. And decided to do it. This was probably February or March, and went home and told my roommates, and they definitely made fun of me and laughed at me and told me it was going to be, it was a cult and I wouldn't come back. And, then I told my girlfriend, who, made me understand how I wouldn't see her all summer. So that was challenging, but she supported me. And then I called my mom and dad, and that was not a fun experience. My mom literally screamed at me and threatened me, like to the point where my girlfriend was sitting next to me, and I was calling my mom to tell her. My mom started screaming and threatening me to the point where my girlfriend started crying at the things my mother was saying to me on the phone to not do this job. And then my father was like, you won't make any money, but you might learn something. So not a lot of support. So as a result, this is going to be hard to believe for the current audience, but we did not have cell phones back in 1988. And I did not talk to my parents the entire summer because I was upset that they didn't support me. And I can tell you it was very satisfying at the end of the summer to put the check across the table in front of their face. And I can honestly tell you they have not doubted me since. That was the change where my parents, you ask them today, they'd say, yeah, we just at that point knew we didn't have to worry about one of our sons, So I ended up doing really well my first summer, and then got a lot of good friends from that. And I just decided to keep coming back each summer. And I was never a huge recruiter. I'd bring out, 2 to 5 kids a summer. That was it. But the ones I brought out were just really sharp buddies of mine. And the first guy I ever recruited, Adam White, brought 3 20-person teams. And I recruited a guy named Greg Best in my fraternity. He recruited a girl named Katrine Lacroix that brought 5 10-person teams and sold 10,000 units. A kid that I grew up with that was 2 grades below me in high school, Josh Bevington, brought 5 10-person teams. So unbeknownst to me, I built an organization, and it wasn't like I was trying. I just kept being positive about the experience, and I kept doing better every summer. So the people I recruited kept seeing me grow. And so they kept coming back because they expected me growing like I was. And by the time I graduated, I had like 70 or 80 people under me. And I actually, I took a job with another company that was started by Southwestern alums, First Meridian, that my student leader was working with. And I said that I'd always promised, though, that I was going to full-time recruit when I graduated, and I was going to have a money summer, we call it, because you don't have to pay for college. So you just go out and make as much as you can and you save it. So I did that, and that summer my group just blew up and did great. And then Tom Boyd flew up to Cincinnati and offered me the DSL job. And I've done this talk, and you probably heard me do it, and I won't go into that right now, but I have a whole talk I do with my students on how to pick a good career job. And I wrote down things that I wanted and I needed, and I felt like I could ask for because of what I was willing to do in college. I could demand in job interviews. And so my job interviews became reverse interviews. Like I interviewed the interviewers to make sure they met my qualifications that I had written down that I wanted in a job. And it was a very logical decision to stay with Southwestern because it was the only job that met all of my requirements. So it was a very logical, pragmatic decision because I did not want to be a person who was going to be changing careers every 3 or 4 years. I'd seen that. I'd read a lot of books about staying with something and how that's going to lead you to wealth quicker than jumping around to things. And so when I made that decision, it was going to be for my career, not for a couple years. And so talked with my girlfriend, who was then my wife at that point, and we decided on Southwestern. I called First Meridian and told them I wasn't going to be working with them, and started as a district sales manager in 1992. And so, so one of my favorite things to say is, same job, same woman for 33 years.
Wow. That is amazing. I love that too. I love the logic you use for making a long-term decision where, like you said, you had many options. You had lots of people that were probably recruiting you. And for you to create that vision for yourself and to know that Southwestern was a home that you could build for 30 plus years. That is a good segue into, with Redefining Possible, the new book that is coming out and the chapter on clarifying your vision. Would love to hear your thoughts on your vision and how did you do that when you were creating your vision for building your business at Southwestern? What were some of the steps that you followed, and how did you create your own personal vision?
Well, I think the most important thing to creating a vision is what your mission is, and how you believe in that mission. Because I've been around a long time, and I've seen sales managers with our company come and go, and you're going to have up and down years. You're always going to have those in life. And what gets you through the down years is a strong belief in what you're doing to impact other human beings. And with Southwestern, that was one of my core things I wanted in a career. Is I wanted to have some kind of positive impact on other people, because I'd seen what the summers at Southwestern had done for me and for my friends and for people that I had recruited, and how it had changed their lives, literally, putting people in that kind of difficult situation where they're all alone and learning self-talk and working 80 hours a week. And so whenever I had, like, my first years at DSL, I was DSL of the year with Southwestern. My second year, I owed the company $10,000 at the end of the year.
Oh my God.
My third year, I was DSL of the year again. My fourth year, I owed the company another $10,000.
Talk about a roller coaster.
So, yeah. And I learned something from each one of those summers. I really did. It probably took me till my fifth or sixth or seventh year with Southwestern where I was financially doing consistently well. But during the down years, our mission is to build character in young people and to help kids and to give everybody a shot. And I had grown up in a situation that, I had a good family, but I had a lot of things going against me. When my parents got divorced, I was living with my mom, and she was going through some tough stuff. And I could tell you some pretty brutal stories of me, living alone in high school for 2 or 3 years, where my mom went to her boyfriend's house every night. I mean, literally having to kick adult men out of my house when I got home working 8 hours after going to high school. I mean, seriously, it was pretty rough and brutal. And I think a lot of people will use those excuses in life to rationalize their behavior later on in life, or to rationalize why they're not successful. And I wanted to be a person that showed people it doesn't matter what you come from. There's no excuse. You can still make it successful. You can be a good parent even though you might have watched your dad make poor choices. You can be financially successful even though you might watch your dad go bankrupt a couple times. So Kim and I, one of our biggest goals when we started a family was to just break generational sin and just show our kids like a loving, wonderful marriage and what to expect of a man, since I had daughters, what they should expect of a man in their lives. And anyway, so the vision was created by, and I didn't think about this at that point, but just writing down what I wanted in a career job, things like, being paid based on performance, not a salary. Being promoted based on performance, not because I knew somebody. Owning part of the company. So having some kind of profit sharing plan, so I knew that my coworkers weren't going to backstab me. Respecting my peers. I didn't want to be working alongside a guy that got the job because his dad knew somebody. The thing I love with our company is everybody that's in those leadership positions earned those leadership positions. So you just have a respect for everybody you work with, and everybody's opinion you care about because you know what they went through to get into that position. So there's all these things that I wrote down that were important to me. I had to respect my boss because I had Tom Boyd as a mentor, and the man he was like my second dad, really my real dad. and I looked up to him so much, and I looked up to his marriage and how he raised his children. And so I could not have a bad boss. So I would literally interview the bosses when I was at job interviews. I'd be like, I want to know who I'm reporting to, and I'd ask them questions. And as crazy as this sounds, if the guy was divorced, I wasn't interested in working with that company because I didn't want to work with a person that had given up on that. And that sounds crazy, but I was that strong with what had happened in my family not happening, and I didn't want those examples in my life. So it started with that, and then it really moved into impact, and that really became my vision, was just impacting positively as many people as I possibly could, and this seemed like the best vehicle to do it. And to this day, and this, Dustin, because you've been by my office, I mean, some of my happiest moments is I've got stacks and stacks and stacks of letters, probably 3,000 letters I've received from students that I've helped, and how this impacted them in a positive way. I've got some of my favorites in my office, and I rotate them in and out so people can walk in and read them. And that's the best part of it for me. And so I think if you are really believing and holding to your mission, then it's easy to create a vision. And then when you can't see the vision because good and bad stuff's happening, I can tell you all the stuff, but then you're going to always fall back on your mission, which is, ours is just what we do for young people, and just helping build character in these young people, and then setting them off in the world and having them be better dads and better husbands, and better parts of their community. And I've seen it, firsthand. So.
Wow. I love that. Believing and holding on to your mission helps you clearly see your vision. I love that you also added adversity to that, and saying when you're on a mission, adversity becomes easier to deal with. You might not even realize you're dealing with adversity because you're so focused on your mission. The things that distract or derail other people, you don't experience because the mission is so clear in your mind, and that provides the vision. So I love that. You also alluded to helping other people with their vision. So I'd love to hear that a little bit in more detail, Mark, where you have hundreds of people that you personally work with. What are some of the numbers, actually, just so the audience knows? How many team members have you personally been kind of part of the management structure with, that you have overseen over the years? And how many current team members do you have? And how do you help them find their vision?
Okay, so I think one of my strengths that's caused me to be very successful at being a Southwestern district sales leader is treating everybody, the same. And when I travel campuses, I don't care if the kid, sold 300 units, which to us is not a good summer. That means they made $2,000. Or if they sold 3,000, I spend the same amount of time with all of them when I'm on that campus. And so even as I've grown in my business, and now I work with about 200 student leaders, and I think we had about 400 first years last year. And over my career, it's over 7,700. And
Wow.
I would
7,700. That's amazing.
And I would say that, and I know all their names. Like I don't lose touch with the people. Like I know my first years right now, because I look at their numbers every single day. Every single day, I do good news for the entire U.S. And I look at everybody's stats every night. And so by the time, even though I've got to memorize 400 new names, by the time they get to check-in August, I don't know their faces yet, but as soon as they give me their name, I know what org they were in. I know what their summer looked like because of the repetition of every single morning looking at their information. So I think when I go to campuses, I work the job like I am their district sales leader, not like I'm a director of sales for the U.S. So I do every part of the job that I ask my districts to do. I do it. The only thing I don't do with our company right now is go door to door. And that's mainly because it's weird if you're 50 years old and you're talking to children. That's kind of weird. If you're in a college kid, that's fine. Okay. But not to me. But as far as holding information meetings, doing day one interviews, holding Zoom meetings nowadays, meeting with kids face to face, going to career centers, anything I ask a district to do, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to show them how to do it. So by doing that, I think you stay in touch with what everybody's going through and you never get too far removed. And that's something I did see back in the early 2000s as I saw people in my position now that stopped holding information meetings, that thought they were above the menial jobs of a district sales leader, and they lost touch and eventually were not there anymore. And I was not going to let that happen in this case. And I think the best part about our job is those information meetings and talking to those kids when they're 18, 19 about success principles and putting this in their head. And a lot of them, it's for the first time ever. And watching that reaction is fantastic. As far as creating visions, I think the easiest way to do that with people is to start with numbers. I think is the easiest way to do it. So like, for example, Edgar Ibarra, who's one of my up and coming district sales leaders, I had a meeting with his campus at the University of Texas, San Antonio 3 years ago. And their goal was to be a top 10 school in the world. And back then they had probably 10 people on the campus, maybe. And so I sat down with his student leaders in I'll never forget, it was an apartment complex. It was their meeting room. We had a dry erase board and we just started doing numbers. So, okay, you have, how many are in here? 5. Okay, if you guys each bring 3 rookies, that's 15 first years and 5 student leaders. Average student leader sells 3,000. Average first year, let's say, sells 1,000. So that means next year you guys have 30,000 units. Okay, now out of those 20, 35% come back. Okay, so now you've got 7 student leaders next year. And then we just kept building it out for 5 years. And we showed that within 5 years, they would be a top 10 school in the world. I think right now they're like number 4 or something with Edgar's group. So we started with the numbers, and then we started talking about a name for their organization, because once you get to a certain level, you're able to name your organization, and Edgar and the group came up with visionaries. So it started with numbers and building the belief and building the excitement. And then from then it just took off. And now they have their own vision for their campus. They have their own vision for their leaders. So I think when you say to somebody, how do you create a vision? It's pretty overwhelming. Dustin, you have one of the best parts I've ever seen on creating a vision. If anybody should be talking about it should be you, not me, with a be-do have and all the stuff that you teach with vision boards. And, my wife has a vision board because of you that she has in her room, in her office. But I think the easiest way to do it, if you're just getting started and you don't want to get overwhelmed, is just look at numbers and just start building out for 5 years, 10 years. And then things will start happening in your mind of how that would feel and the people you would impact. And then it just starts exponentially multiplying. Back in 1999, I had both of my mentors retire, Tom Boyd and John Loughran. And I was tasked with taking over that group. And I merged the group to Eagle Blitz in 2001. It was Eagle separate, Blitz separate. And what I came up with, the vision I came up with that everybody latched onto, and we grew 30% a year in 2002, 2003, 2004, we were growing 30% a year. I had one year where every one of my districts was DSL of the year. And what we latched onto is we had total belief, like we were statistically the hardest working director group in the company. Statistically, if you look at the director report, highest in demos, highest in SIDS, highest in hours. And so we thought that the way we taught this job and the way we did this job was the best of any other group in the company. So what I built in our group is we need to be able to make more decisions at Southwestern. And the more market share that we own, the more influential we can be into outlines, how sales is being taught, everything else. And the group jumped in on it. So we called it market share. And every year we just tried to increase our market share of total units sold in the Southwestern company. And we are growing every year. So sure enough, we started being able to run the outlines for the GRS meetings, and we started being able to do all the teaching, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And that was our vision. Our vision was to be the number one director group that was controlling how people were taught to do this job, because we thought we did it the best. And so we just wanted to build market share. And the group really rallied around it. So that was one vision that I created. And then, as you know, I was gone for a couple years. And when I came back, then a whole other vision had to be created back in 2015, where I was just frustrated with how things were being run again. And I was frustrated with a specific group. and I just really got upset that people weren't respecting the job at DSL. And there's a lot of doubters and haters. And so I ran a meeting at the summer meeting where I asked to do the outline, and I got up there and I just kind of confronted all the DSLs about the apathy and the attitude, and that it was and then I called Henry up after that meeting. I said, you need to put me in charge of the US. Like, you need to put me in charge of the US. And I went to one of my best friends, Tim Ritzer, who he and I were same level. And I said, look, man, here's what I think I need to do. Are you okay with that? Before I did it. And he said, absolutely, Rau. He goes, absolutely. And so I went to Henry and I said, I need to do this. And Henry said, and Spencer called me, and I'll never forget what he said. He said, assumed leadership is better than assigned, Mark. Absolutely, you're doing this. He said, assumed better than assigned. And then I took over that, and then we went through some tough spots, but now we're getting the people in place. But it's amazing how patient you have to be, and how you just have to keep you got to stick with what you believe in. There's so many times I get attacked with schedule, like, we need to lower the hours because that doesn't work nowadays, or we don't need to call them demos anymore, let's call them this, or we don't need this many commitments a night because nowadays, and there's so many things you have to defend and stick to what works, and you'll get attacked from all fronts. But eventually you'll get the group of people that shares your mission and shares that vision. And then it's amazing how it grows. Like last year, I think we had 7 promotions, and this year we'll probably have 12 or more, in just 2 years, just promoting people because they caught the vision, and they're long-term associated now, and they've all started growing their own visions. And that's when it's really fun.
Wow. Well, man, you just said a lot there, and I was taking notes. I love what you said about how you help other people find their vision, and kind of dissecting what you said. The first thing you do with the example with Edgar is break down the vision and then build it out. So you take it down to the lowest common denominator, and then you show them how to build it out over years, and you show them the numbers. And that is so brilliant. And hopefully something the listeners are writing down too, going, okay, I've never thought of helping other people with their vision, and starting with breaking it down what they want, and then building out what it could be. And then the second step you said with Edgar is showing him the money. And so actually not only showing him, okay, here's what you would do literally, like with numbers, but then here's what is in it for you. And that's so important for people to have a vision that they understand, that they can take ownership of. And while there are a lot of people who just want to do good in the world, and that is excellence is its own reward, also getting compensated for that, and people knowing how they're going to have resources to help impact the world in a positive way is important. And you had that. And then the third one was great, I thought, was helping them define the culture that they want. And so when you're talking vision with people, is ultimately taking them into a state of being, and what kind of culture and world do you want to manifest? And you said earning the right to name your team as part of that. And so that is so good. And then you also were mentioning leading the entire company's vision, Would you dig in with that just a little bit more and talking about, you did have your little break, I guess is what we could call it. And then you come back and it was an opportunity for you to hit reset on the company vision. So I think that's a great story really of redefining possible, and really what the entire book is about is no matter what the obstacle, no matter what the challenge is, that you still keep the mission, just like you said, you keep the vision, and you're able to redefine possible. So could you tell us about how you redefined possible and have helped lead the company with its vision in the U.S. For Southwestern Advantage?
Yes. Well, if we start with, when I was away, I ended up being a corporate recruiter, a headhunter with my mentor, Tom Boyd. He owned a placement company. I was working with him. And, when Henry approached me, in 2007 about coming back to Southwestern, that was a really tough decision for me. And I won't go over all the details. I just had some some trust issues and stuff. But Henry came in, and we had a new CEO and new leaders, and then I had to go to my mentor and tell him I'm going back to the company. I'm leaving you, and I was his top recruiter within 2 years. I was his number one recruiter, and so when I came back, that was really tough because my organization had shrunk 40% in 2 years. So I watched my group because, the guy they put in charge, I recommended they not, but they did. And he shrunk my group, and I was still mentoring these kids. They were still calling me for those 2 years. And because of my loyalty to our program and what it does for young people, even though I wasn't in a happy spot, I was mentoring Marcel Mayer and Wade Floyd and all these guys during those 2 years because they weren't getting it from their leader. So when I did come back, I was in a position where some of my leaders, some of my best had left because I was gone. And so then I was developing these new guys and gals and having to create a vision with them. And they had an easy manager, a guy that was more of a, you're great all the time, not really digging in with them. So that was an adjustment. I probably lost a couple more people because of my management style, which is more earn it, earn it, earn it. You don't deserve anything, and so I had to rebuild it with Eagle Blitz from 2008 to 2015. And when I felt like Eagle Blitz was in good hands, that is when I went to Henry and went to Spencer and said, I need to do this with the company. I need to help our company do the same thing. So that was even tougher because then you're working with people that they know you and they know of you and they know your success, but there's always a challenge when you're putting your systems into other people that are established and they have their own systems. So that takes years to do. And so it probably took me till 2019, 2020 to really, and I won't go all the details, Dustin, the details, but there's different director groups that I naturally was competitive with, and they had this built-in animosity towards me and my group because of the competition. And then all of a sudden they're reporting to me or something. And so that takes a lot of relationship work. There's a lot of, you just have to keep winning the war, not the battle. You need to let the comments fall away and take the high road all the time. And eventually you win them over. It's kind of like raising children, they can eat poorly and they can not exercise, but if they keep seeing their parents eating correctly and exercising, then eventually they're going to eat well and exercise. And it's going to take years, for them to finally do it. But eventually they will do it because that's the behavior that you've modeled. So it's always model the behavior you want them to do instead of telling them to do it, model the behavior. And then eventually they do the behavior because they see your actions, not your words. Your words don't mean anything. So with these other director groups, just modeling the behavior and taking the high road, and eventually there was buy-in, and now there's a lot of buy-in, and people that used to have animosity towards me will call me now for advice, and it's crazy and it's awesome, but it took years, of taking the high road and modeling the behavior. So yeah, it's just not a quick thing. Yep, in everything you do. No, and in everything you do, and in how if we're at a company meeting, how you treat the waitress, at the restaurant, how you talk with your assistant, I mean, it's every type of interaction that you have to model the correct behavior. It's not just how you're dealing with someone in a meeting or a personal conference. It's how you're living your life. Like when you're hanging out with your wife at a meeting, how do you treat your wife? How do you treat your children? How do you talk about your wife to other people? I mean, it's in me, my job, you have to be modeling behavior in every part of your life, because most kids don't want to go door to door 80 hours a week. They don't. So they're looking for a reason not to. And if we provide that reason because we're late for a meeting, because we're not professional, whatever, then they're going to jump on that. So I really feel like our job is so challenging because we're really trying to be role models for them in every part of their life, not just as a business entrepreneur, but I want them to see a good marriage. I want them to see successful children. I want them to see everything that they can have for themselves too. So it's every little conversation. It's not rolling your eyes at anything. It's just, it's just modeling the right behavior all the way through. And it's a work in progress. It takes a long time. It's not quick.
That is such a good philosophy. And that is something that when you're doing the long-term play, it always plays out. And I love how you're always thinking long-term, Mark. And when you model the behavior, just like you said with your kids, a company will follow suit. And over years of modeling that vision, just like your kids, it comes around. And that's brilliant. So thank you for sharing that. Man, time has flown by. Would love to pivot here for the last part of our conversation to talk about, man, the year 2020 was a wild year for everybody on the planet Earth. And, come March 15th, it was just a new world, a new dawn, a new day. And I think redefining possible took a whole new definition for people in the year 2020. And one of my favorite parts of the year 2020 was attending and participating in the phone calls that you created, where you named them the Brave New World Calls. And we had a group of 20 to 50, depending on the week, leaders from about half a dozen different countries represented. And you were like the UN ambassador of getting our global team working. And you had the US group, your team, out testing all kinds of different things. Tell us a little bit about the journey of 2020 and what did you have to do from that moment through the entire selling season. And that is just an incredible story. So much so that I think actually there might be a book that we should hear about. So could you tell us a little bit about 2020, Mark?
Yeah, this story could be an entire book. I'm actually writing a book, and I did an outline for a chapter on this. And by the time I was done with a 3-page outline, I was like, this might be a book in itself. I think the bottom line, once again, I'll go back to, is my absolute belief in our mission and what we do for young people. So once COVID happened, never one time in my brain or anyone I've worked with, and I can say that, did we think we weren't going to be having a successful summer. It might look different. It might be totally, virtual or whatever, but we kept moving forward. We never hesitated. We moved forward. So first it went to, okay, we can't recruit on a college campus, so let's go virtual, you know? So actually, first we were supposed to have a meeting in New Orleans with 227 airline tickets booked on March 17th. Okay. Like Friday, I think it was like March 13th. Um, Dan and I have a talk about, hey, it might not be where we can even get that many people to New Orleans. And then I call the hotel, and I've had a relationship with them for 25 years. And Lisa's like, yeah, Mark, I don't know if you want to come here because everybody's shutting down, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we'll still take you because of our relationship. Well, then the CDC said, well, you can only gather in groups of 50. So then over the weekend, we pivoted right away to 5 different regional hotels for 50 people each. But then by Monday morning, it was 10 or less. So then we cancel all of those. And then it's like, okay, we're going to make a webinar. And none of us knew how to do Zoom webinars. We really didn't. I'm an expert now, but I had no idea how to do Zoom webinars. So we literally did a Zoom webinar that we planned a new outline, learned how to do this within 2 days. And we had, I think, 287 kids attended.
Wow.
In about 30 different locations of like 5 to 10 in each one to keep it below the CDC guidelines. And it was a huge success, like a huge success. So when that happened, when we had that Zoom webinar, we called GRS2 in mid-March, we were 26% down in recruiting. And by the time the end of April, early May, we were 30% up in people. So we took adversity and completely reshifted. And what happened, Dustin, was all these companies were scared and they're fencing in and they're canceling their internships, canceling their semester abroads, canceling all this stuff. Kids were losing jobs because their hotels and the restaurants were shutting down and the bars. And we just kept fencing out. So we just picked up everybody. Anybody that was losing a job, we're like, we got a job. Yeah, we're still going. We didn't know how we were going. We didn't know what we were doing, but we were going to keep moving forward. It's kind of like Steve Jobs when he designed that black box that he knew designing it that the technology wouldn't be ready for 3 years, and he was hoping it would be ready in a year. So he designs his box and then realizes technology didn't catch up. Well, we were fencing out and recruiting and holding parent webinars, not realizing how we were going to sell this thing door to door. I mean, we really didn't know. So we solved the recruiting thing by the end of March, but then I was like, okay, well, now we've got to solve, how do you virtually sell door to door? How do you do this? Right? So then this was a tough decision. Is I started this Brave New World group, and then I pulled like my 10 top recruiters off of recruiting. Okay, so these are, because they happen to be my top 10 salespeople or my top 10 recruiters. So difficult decision. I talked to all their DSLs. We pulled them all off and said, here is our riddle. We have to solve this problem, and we have to solve it in 5 weeks. Okay, we have to have a schedule. We need to have metrics. We need to have sales talks. We need to have virtual slicks. We need to have all this stuff done, and we need to prove it's going to work before we can have kids doing this. We got to be able to look at the kids in the eye and go, look, we have documented evidence that this works. So we started with 6 different beta tests. We did a beta test of, talking to Southwestern alums, or talking to previous customers, talking to low producing students, their customers from the year before, calling. We had given out our website for free to help with COVID in the month of April. So we called those people that we gave the website to free for. So we tried all these beta tests over 2 weeks, and we found out there was 2 groups of people that were the most likely to purchase. And so then we found out it was the Hot 100 list, and it was your previous summer's customers for experienced people. And then we did a 3-day beta test. We had 2 teams of 7 people each. We set a schedule, and we had them work from day to night for 3 straight days. And during those 3 days, the average person, first time ever virtual selling, using these methods, using our new sales talk, using our new scripts, was able to make enough where if they did it for the summer and didn't get better, the average person would have made 10 grand. So once
Wow.
we had that number, then we knew we could look at these rookies and go, we have a workable model. This is what we're doing. And then we brought them. Then we had to create a virtual sales school, as you know. And then your company helped us tremendously because this was more of a professional sale than the door-to-door sale. So we needed to learn how to do referral selling, which, Dave helped us, and Jenny Newt with the Hot 100. Closing, you helped us with. The demonstration, Ron Alford helped us with. So we had you guys come into our sales school and train on these things, but we had to work it with 4 different time zones. So that was another scheduling thing. But the key to all of this, Dustin, was never in our mind was it not going to work. Never was there a doubt. Never was there any kind of fear. It was all, how are we going to solve this? And to be honest with you, I probably worked harder those 2 months than any time in my career. And I probably enjoyed it as much as any time in my career because it was new. It was scary. It was like back when I was on the book field, no guarantees, and it was exhilarating. It was exhilarating. I loved it. And so we solved the problem. And then we brought them to sales school when COVID died down a little bit. We had to come up with, how do we get kids trained face-to-face? So we spaced them out. We bought masks for them and then sent them out to the book field and had to teach them how to put that into their approach and how to wear masks and it was just crazy. And as you know now, I'm having the best weeks of my entire career. Right now we're up 50% as a country, which, as you know, I can't remember, and I've been here 33 years, that ever happening any year that I've been at Southwestern is the entire country is up 50%.
Wow. Man, that is just so inspiring, Mark. And that needs to be a book. That story will go down in history as one of the greatest business successes in the midst of adversity and needing to redefine what's possible on the recruiting front, on the product development front, and on the selling front. And also, I would concur. I've known you now for 18 years. This, in the year of 2020, you have been in your prime. It was almost like you were made for war. It's like bring it on. And when the going got tough, you doubled down on everything. Your team, just like you said, modeling the vision, the team rallied. And what's interesting, just having a unique perspective, getting to meet a lot of other leaders all across the world. Not everybody in the world in the year 2020 responded with doubling down their activity. A lot of leaders took a wait and see attitude. And I think that those people coming into 2021 are having to work a lot harder to create momentum after just getting the tidal wave of 2020 hitting them. And you're not in that boat. You're actually on top of the wave and created your own momentum due to despite the circumstances. And so, and also just one little correction to what you said, Southwestern Consulting is not my company. It's our company. And there's a great team of people that all are making things happen there. So just want to make sure to get that out there. So, yeah, but I'm glad that we could help actually be part of navigating, helping with those changes. So.
Yeah, and the amazing part, like having your team or our team at consulting, they went all in to help us. I can look at all of the district sales leaders I work with, and they all had some huge impact that they brought. Ryan Groom designed the entire virtual sales school time zone dilemma with 4 different time zones and did the outlines. Virgie was extremely instrumental in the sales talk. Highlanders over in Scotland did all of our virtual slicks.
Bulgaria and Czech Republic, I believe.
Yeah, Czech Republic. And then AJ helped us with the virtual sales school, like the details of the outline and what to cover. Amy Groom came up with hotels and Airbnbs to put the kids in for the virtual training. So we had them together to create that bonding and to hold them accountable. So everybody contributed and everybody was all in to help. There wasn't anyone slacking. It was like, what more can we do? And it was exciting. And, and it's fun to be doubted. I was getting calls from alumni all the time. This is it. Southwestern's not going to make it. They're not going to survive. And that just fueled me. I was like, you watch, you wait. And I was telling, I was on an American Council call yesterday. I said, you guys, if you want to have fun, if you want to pump yourself up, just call an alumni that you haven't talked to in 6 months and explain how well we're doing, because they all thought we were going to crash and burn. And it's so much fun, especially the negative ones. Just call them up, because it's so fun to talk about this story to people, and it gives them hope and inspiration. I'm one of the guys I had the privilege of mentoring a little bit when he was a first year was Kevin Stitt, the governor of Oklahoma. And I had Kevin on one of my Zoom border wars a week and a half ago. And we were talking, he goes, Mark, this is just so inspiring to me. He goes, you don't understand, how tough this is right now in my position. I mean, you're just getting attacked. I've never closed our state down, and I'm just getting attacked. And for me to see a company that, that really made me who I was when I was younger, and they're just still attacking, and they're like a buffalo running into a storm. And he goes, it's inspiring to me, and he goes, so thank you for letting me talk to your group. I mean, this is the governor of Oklahoma saying this stuff. So, it's a lot of fun right now. It really is. And to see the smiles on my employees' faces and just that feeling of overcoming extreme adversity, which is just built into a Southwestern person's blood, in their DNA. And so it was so much fun to watch everybody attack this issue. And, so far we're winning. Still got a couple of weeks left, but we're winning.
That is awesome, Mark. Well, everybody at the Southwestern family of companies, and out of our 150, 200,000 alumni that are out there, everybody is just giving 2 thumbs up and so thankful for what the team and you and all the people that have been part of navigating into this brave new world has been for Southwestern. So thank you for all of that. And thank you for redefining possible. Your vision and the vision of the Southwestern Advantage, that was created 160 years ago, to have that vision continually to have the same mission, but be willing to be flexible in how we accomplish it. And I think redefining possible is all about that. And you have proven once again that Southwestern knows how to make it through adversity. So thank you for your leadership. For the listeners, if you wanted to hear more about redefining possible and how to redefine your vision, have clarity for your vision, and more stories like what Mark is sharing here today, go to www.redefiningpossible.com and you can order the book there. And thank you, Mark, for being on the Action Catalyst podcast. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Dustin, and thank you for all the hard work you do with our company.
Glad to do it. All right. See you guys.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. To stay updated on everything that the Action Catalyst is up to, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst and Twitter at Catalyst_Action. Thanks for listening. This episode is sponsored by Southwestern Coaching. Southwestern Coaching has helped over 12,000 people increase their incomes by over 25% on average. As a successful salesperson, you know the importance of increasing your sales, but sometimes you might just need a little extra push and accountability to meet your goals and grow your business. Southwestern Coaching will help you increase your income through one-on-one sales and leadership coaching tailored specifically to your needs. Together, we will elevate sales. To schedule your free one-on-one business action planning session with a Southwestern coach, go to www.southwesternconsulting.com/action catalyst.